Hey guys, Joe Davis here from Right Way Home Solutions. In today's video, we're going to cover the main contracts that you need in wholesaling, right? So this is directed at our new Right Way members, but also if you're watching the training course or just watching online, it's pretty across the U.S. of what you need, depending on what state or what market you're in. Our market is in Texas, so you're going to hear me say a lot of verbiage regarding the state contracts that what we use. So you just need to get online and find out what contract your state uses, right? So in Texas, we have something called TREC, which is TREC, and that's the Texas Real Estate Commission. So most of the contracts that we use are the ones that are promulgated by TREC, right? And the reason we use this is because it is very familiar to most of our title companies and most of our realtors, right? They're familiar with this contract. They deal with it every single day, right? So it makes them feel a lot more comfortable. If you are going online or finding some guru to buy a one-page purchase and sale agreement, it could possibly work, but when you send that over to a realtor, or you send it over to a title company, or the seller decides to bring an attorney into this to overlook the contract, they're not going to want to deal with it, right? They're gonna think you're not serious. You're not using a state promulgated contract, right? And also, if anything ever gets litigious, you want something that is promulgated by the state so that it stands up in court. If you have a single purchase and sale agreement and your seller decides to pull out of the contract the day of the sale and sell it to another wholesaler because they offered him more money, it's going to be difficult for you to fight that without having a state promulgated contract that everybody is used to seeing. Okay. So here at Right Way, on all the contracts where there is an available contract, state promulgated contract, we use that, right? And also a number of us here are also realtors, so we do need to use that, okay? So the most common contract that we are using here at Right Way, and what I would suggest any wholesaler to use for, is the residential 1-4 contract, right? So the residential 1-4 is what? It's a single family home from 1 door up until 4 doors, okay? So 99% of the time what we're doing here, that is what we are sending out to the seller or to the realtor who's familiar with the contract to get signed. And all of the terms, they're gonna stay the same, right? Because we're dealing with this every single day. So we have our option money, we have our earnest money, we have our closing date, who's paying for closing costs, right? A lot of this stuff that we do here is already pre-filled. We are buying the house as is. So we know that the foundation is messed up. We know that the roof is messed up. Doesn't mean that we aren't still going to do some due diligence, right? Or to find our buyer within the termination period. But it's a very standard contract. We feel very comfortable with it, that we know all the ins and outs and the legalities of that contract. So TREC 1-4 for us, get to know that contract inside and out. Another reason is if you produce a contract to a homeowner at their kitchen table, right, you need to know all the terminology in there, because it might be intimidating for them, right? This is the biggest decision of some of these homeowners' lives. They've only sold one house. They've inherited this property. They lived in this property for 40 years, never did work. It is an investment property, but they're going to see this contract and it looks like a contract, so they're going to have a lot of questions that they're going to be asking you. If you do not know the answers to those questions on the contract, whether or not it pertains to what we're doing buying the property as is, it's not going to fill that seller with much confidence, okay? And what happens, I've seen it happen when I was new to wholesaling a number of years ago. If you cannot explain that section of the contract, what are they going to do? They're going to say, hey, I have a cousin who's a realtor. I can get them to check it out. I have an aunt who works in real estate. I can get them to check it out. Or you know what? I better run this past an attorney just to make sure I'm not giving my house away. Okay. So at that point, the deal's gonna bust out. When they contact that aunt or that cousin to bring them the contract, they're gonna say, "Oh, you're only selling it for $60,000? Oh, I could list this for you for $80,000. I can get it sold. Don't go with this guy. Never heard of him. Let's not deal with him. Let me do it. Let me be the professional. Basically, let me make the money instead of this other guy, right?" But if you are confident and you know all the terms of this contract, and you're sitting with the seller, as soon as they ask about the survey, you can tell them exactly what that means and why we marked the box that says survey not required or survey required. Explaining the option money to them, explaining the earnest money to them, you are in a much better position to get that contract executed from the seller. You're going to sign, you're going over the title, you've done a great job, right? But it's not going to come if you don't know that contract. So we're going to post a link below for our guys about the in-depth explanation of the Trek 1 to 4. Watch that over and over and over again. Memorize it. You know, you're only really dealing with about 8 pages. Then the last couple pages, they're more for the title company. When they get the contract in, they can send out receipts. So it's not a ton of information to learn, right? So the Trek 1 to 4. If you are going to make an offer on a condominium, then you are using the condominium contract, right? Here at Right Away, we don't in Houston, we don't come across a ton of condos, but we do come across them. We do buy them, and if the numbers work, we still sell them to investors. Okay, so we're also going to post a link to the condo contract. It looks very similar to the Trek 1 to 4, but it is a slight variation, and you need to be using that if you are sending in a offer on a condo. Okay, there's also a condo which is for unimproved property. So what is that? That is not a single family residential 1 to 4 because there's no residential property on the building. So an unimproved land contract, again, it's going to look similar from the offset. At the top, it's going to say unimproved land contract. You're going to be using that if you're offering on lots. Get to know these, right? If it is a multi-family unit that is above a Trek 1 to 4, so let's say you come across a sixplex, you're sending in a commercial contract, okay? Again, get to know the commercial contract. You're dealing with sellers who are well versed in real estate. Generally, when you're talking about multifamily owners, if a guy owns a 40-unit apartment complex, he's going to have some knowledge of it. And if you are sending in a Trek 1 to 4 on a 40-unit, you know, he's not going to take you very seriously. Okay, so get to know the commercial contract that we use. If you are new to wholesaling, and we cover this a little bit more in the the initial stages, the basics of it, and you don't have the ability to double close a transaction right now, you are going to be using an assignment contract. Okay, so not to go too much in depth again about what an assignment is, but you're taking your Trek 1 to 4, which is signed. You're taking your assignment, or it can be anything, right? You can assign your unimproved land, you can assign your condo, and even on the commercial contract, you'll see where it is assignable. You can actually mark a box that says assignable in the commercial contract. You're using the assignment of contract to get that over to your cash buyer or your buyer using hard money, right? In terms of other contracts that are very important in wholesaling, besides your promulgated contracts and your assignment, you want to have an amendment, right? An amendment to contract is what you're going to use to basically change anything on your original contract. That's anything from price, from date, from name, from additional option amount, additional earnest money. If you decide to buy under another entity name, if you decide to make the contract assignable, there's a lot of different things. If you decide that you do need a survey, right? There's a lot of different things that after you get that contract signed by the seller that you might need to amend that contract. So you're not going to write up a whole new contract. You're just going to get that one-page amendment to change whatever is on that contract that needs changing. You're going to get that executed by your seller, and you're going to execute that. Then you're going to send your amendment to title and show them, I've got a reduction in the price, right? Here's my amendment to show the price reduction on that. I'm sending that into title so that when they come to closing the property and to generate their HUDs, they're going to know the correct price to put on the HUD if you send the amendment to them, right? And name the entity name if you've assigned it, any of that stuff, right? So an amendment is very important. So what are you going to do? We've covered this in the video where we talked about option and earnest money and how the option money protects the earnest money. What are you going to be sending in to the title company if for whatever reason you need to terminate that contract, right? If the seller, for example, said, no way, I'm not reducing the price, you can take it at our original price, or you can leave it. Well, I'm gonna leave it, okay? I overcooked my rehab, I can't purchase this property. So what am I sending in? The form I'm sending in is a termination of contract, right? Basically means if you look at the terms of this property, I had my option period of time to terminate this property if I wanted to. That's why it's called a termination period on page 8. And I am sending this in to let everybody know that I'm out of this contract. I'm backed out because I had, written in my original contract that I could terminate. Here it is, right? So now that the contract is terminated, the earnest money is still at the title company, right? The option money stays with the seller. That's theirs. We paid them that money for the right to terminate. So we've sent in the termination of the contract. You also want to be sending in a release of earnest that you have signed already. Okay, so you're sending the release of earnest so the seller can get that signature and you can get that over to title so they can send you your earnest money back. If the seller is not signing the release of earnest, the money is sitting there at title until you can figure it out, right? Title won't do anything until both parties do it, even though on your termination you sent in and you were within your right to do so. Okay, so know these contracts, your promulgated contracts, your TREC 1 to 4, your unimproved, your condo, your commercial contract, your amendment to change the contract, your termination contract. Know all of these inside out, right? If you are making this your career and you want to be lifelong in real estate, you got to know these contracts that everyone uses on a day-to-day level. It's kind of a no-brainer, right? To know exactly what you're talking about. These contracts do change from time to time. It's generally a very small change that is made. So it's not a drastic change where you have to go and relearn the whole contract. But keep up with your state board, right? Keep up to use the updated contracts as they come out. If TREC updates a 1 to 4, we're going to be using that updated 1 to 4. We're going to be finding out what has changed on that contract to the new one, so that we're better versed in it. Keep up to date with your local board so that you can use those promulgated contracts and you can make those updates as necessary, right? So watch this video numerous times just to have a better idea. We are going to post some links for our guys regarding the Texas contract and giving a real general breakdown. There's videos out there that should break down your local board's standard contracts. Watch those, get to know those. We also have a link to where you can obtain those contracts. If you're a local, if you're a Texas realtor, we can give those contracts to you, or reach out to us if you have any questions on contracts that you have a question about or you want us to look over. Feel free to email us or email below or send us a message, and we'll try to help out as best as we can. Thank you guys.